Happy Saturday and welcome to the NASCAR DFS Strategy Show right here on Awesemo.com. I am Jason Floyd. Hopefully you're having a great start to your weekend, as it is now week 2 of the NASCAR season. Of course, last week was the Daytona 500. Now we go to the Daytona Road Course. So, Phil, appreciate you stopping in here on Saturday morning, or I guess early Saturday afternoon here for me here in Tampa. But overall, kind of, I guess first off, what was kind of your takes of last week? Obviously, a much different race here coming up here tomorrow. But what's your overall takes of what you saw last week?
Oh, just the pandemonium and the chaos that you would expect. And you and I were talking before the show. I mean, initially you had a big wreck that caught up a bunch of guys. Like if you had Eric Jones, if you had Chris Buescher, you were already looking at your lineup saying, okay, what do I need to happen just so I can break even? If you took a chance on Ryan Blaney as a lower owned GPP play because he could lead some laps, you were saying, oh, what the crap. I mean, he's already got a big negative score. So, I mean, it's what you expect. On the real side of racing, I'm happy for Michael Mcdowell. I mean, he has put forth a lot of work in this series. He started off as a Joe Gibbs developmental driver. And the sad story for Toyota Racing and Joe Gibbs is that if you don't show immediate progress in trucks or Xfinity, they have no problem shipping you down the road because there is somebody else waiting to fill those shoes. So McDowell didn't win any races for Joe Gibbs, and he got shucked on down the road. I mean, he's worked his way a bunch of different just lower tier bad equipment rides, kind of working his way up. And you know, he's found a good home at Front Row these past couple of years. Really had a good year considering what he's driving. Got his win. As long as he finishes top 30 in points, he is in the playoffs. And I mean, it's fantastic for him, fantastic for that team.
Let's talk a little bit about roster construction here for tomorrow. Obviously with now this being a road course, what's kind of your overall thoughts in terms of how you're constructing your lineups?
Right. I stress this point every time, but whatever race we go to following Daytona, you've got to go back to that intro article that I pinned. I retweeted it before today's show. It always comes back to NASCAR DFS is a sliding scale. You can't build your lineups the same way each week. Everything about the way that you construct lineups changes from week to week because the venue changes, the amount of laps changes, the type of the venue changes. And this week, we're going from 200 laps around the super speedway at Daytona, and now we're just doing 65 laps around Daytona's road course. So, I mean, you're cutting out a bunch of dominator points on DraftKings and FanDuel. It's a totally different style of racing that suits some guys better than others. And, you know, for cash, this is purely a place differential build. Look, you've got guys in the 20s, you've got guys in the 30s that are going to gain place differential. That's what you're looking at. And quite frankly, when you start thinking about just how many dominator points that there really are on DraftKings and FanDuel available. I mean, on FanDuel, there's only 6.5 laps led points on the board. So, you know, I'm not even worrying about what Chase, what Denny, what these guys up front can do with laps led because they're going to get outscored by these guys in the back easily. When it comes to DraftKings, you have to look at the math and say, what's going to happen here that either Chase, Denny, one of these other guys, Joey Logano, whoever that are starting in the top 10, what are they going to have to do with their laps led and their fastest laps to outscore all of these guys starting in the back? And what you're really going to need is a pure dominating performance. You're going to need a Chase or a Hamlin to just sit on the lead, soak up all of these laps led points, these fastest lap points in order for them to really outscore these guys. But these road races, that isn't what happens. There's only one road race in my recent memory, Watkins Glen from 2019, where Chase led nearly all of the laps that I can think that happened. Every other scenario is you've got 3 to 4 guys all splitting up the laps led, and that's what I'm expecting Sunday. And if that's the case, your optimal GPP tournament lineups are probably going to be place differential based once again.
One of the comments in the chat, just kind of go back on last week here real quickly. Jacob going, none of my drivers wrecked. I was pretty lucky. I was winning 13K with half a lap to go, and wrecked screwed, ended up winning $200. Congrats if you're able to win it, because that wreck beginning of the race, that just screwed me. Once I saw that, I wasn't watching the race, but I saw it pop up on my phone, and I was just like, right when I looked at the names, I go, well, that just probably did majority of my lineups in. So that, unfortunately, that does happen there. But we are, of course, here to break down this one. I know people can check out your columns over at awesemo.com to get some of your written thoughts in terms of that, also where you do go into, some various stats here. But in terms of dominators, what's kind of your overall thoughts as, how many dominators are you looking to put in your lineups?
When you look at past data from all of these road courses, and especially from last year's Go Bowling 253, which is the only real cup data that we have here at the Daytona road course. If you don't start up front, then it generally doesn't work out in your favor to be a dominator. So when I look at all these guys in the top 10, I only see real two candidates to me that pop off the board as guys that can get out front and lead a vast majority of these laps, like half the laps, or maybe more than a third. That would be your 4 straight road race winning driver, Chase Elliott, and then Denny Hamlin, who is starting 4th. Those are really the only 2 guys that I'm looking at that could be dominator options for Sunday. Other than that, I mean, if people look at the race sheets, if a guy's highlighted in pink, he's a guy that I like for tournaments that could gain some place differential, get some of these dominator points, but they're not going to be like your main dominators come Sunday.
Before we get into the salaries, and of course, we'll start off with the top end drivers here. Christopher over in YouTube would like to know, what advanced settings in Fantasy Cruncher can you recommend? Uniques, exposure, randomness. I'll tell you, just my general rule, more times than not, is like in NASCAR, 2 unique drivers per when I'm doing 150 lineup. Also, it would be, in terms of randomness, I'm looking at a 20% randomness. Sometimes I may go in that 10 to 15 range, but overall 20% randomness is what I do. And then usually what I first start off with no matter how many lineups I'm trying to build, I start off with do a crunch of 150 lineups. Then I kind of go from there. But Phil, talk to you about your process, so Christopher kind of knows how your thought process is with Fantasy Cruncher.
If this was just a typical road race where we've had several races throughout the season and the starting lineup isn't being based upon just one race at Daytona, and that's why the way that we build for Sunday's race is going to be so much more different than what we did for last year's road race and what we've done in the past. I mean, in these past road races, we haven't had all of this place differential at the back. So it's really kind of screwing with what we've done. So if you're looking at last year's optimal lineup and trying to use that as a guideline for how you're going to build lineups, I don't think you're giving yourself a full advantage. Like you're handicapping yourself. If it was a typical road race, I'd set one group that would have my dominator picks, which would be Chase or Denny, and I'd say it must have one of these guys, and then just whatever place differential value works together with the rest of the salary cap. This week, I'm just going off of raw points. I'm going to probably set my max exposures to 40-45%. Now, I don't expect this race to be anywhere as bananas as the trucks race was last night. That one had rain, and plus the trucks drivers are either very inexperienced or they're good enough to be in a major series, but they don't move themselves up to Xfinity or Cup. I'm not expecting that sort of chaos. I mean, last year's road race in the Go Bowling 253 was pretty calm. So this year for tomorrow, going into FC, I'm going to set randomness to 15 to 20%, max exposures to 40 to 45%, and I'm leaving groups alone, and I'm going to go over my lineups after they build to make sure that FC did what I wanted to do. But I mean, I'm just going to be worrying about place differential.
Of course, if you ever do have any questions, you can line those up in our premium NASCAR Slack channel. Those do take priority, or you can put it right here in YouTube. We'll get it as we go along. Do want to let you know we do got some free content over at awesemo.com today. NBA player projections, NHL player and top stack rankings, and MMA fighter rankings. Also, we'll mention the NHL strategy show will be coming up here at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Then it'll be MMA live before lock at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And then we'll have the pair of NBA shows, NBA Deeper Dive, NBA live before lock starting at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Let's get right into tier number one. These are the drivers that are 10,000 and up. So we've got Martin Truex Jr., Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, AJ Almandinger, and Kyle Busch. I will mention, we already got a question in relation to Ryan Blaney. Jacob saying this is probably a good race to play Blaney. He would have won the Clash if the wreck didn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, even if Blaney just would have driven around during that race because there was nothing else to gain. I mean, you still would like Blaney this week. We look at the salaries. Truex is our highest guy at 11K, and he's I'm looking here live at DraftKings odds. He's at plus 450. Since Monday, his odds have gone from plus 600 to plus 450. So that's pretty good for him. AJ Allmendinger has gone from the third best odds at plus 800 all the way down to plus 1600. Shows you just how much they think that these starting positions matter. And I mean, for Dinger, I don't care. He's not a full-time driver. All he's concerned about is getting a win for this team running a partial schedule. So I mean, he's got no motivation outside of a win. He doesn't care about points. He doesn't care about stage points. It's all about a win, much like what Dinger did last year in the Xfinity Series. But Truex, your most expensive guy, second best road racing average in the series since 2018. Ran really well here last year in the road course race. Led the third most laps. Had 16 fastest laps. Had a pit road penalty at some point, either in the first or second stage, that put him at the tail end of the longest lap, and still worked his way forward. Was a threat late in the race before Chase really kind of pulled away and took care of the race. But the thing that I don't like about Truex is him starting 19th, and you go down the board, you've got Blaney cheaper starting 27th. You've got Dinger cheaper starting 34th. I mean, you go down the board into the 9K range, you've got Bowman starting further back at 9K. You've got Byron starting further back at 8,800. It's a tough case to make for paying all the way up for Truex this week. In order for Truex, I believe, to be optimal, you're not only going to need him to get to the front, but you're going to need him to lead like a quarter of the laps in the process.
Got to look at Chase Elliott here, starting on the pole, 10,700 DK, 14,000 over on FanDuel. What's the thought process in putting him in your lineup?
If you play Chase this weekend, it's a belief that he's going to lead over half of this race. And I mean, he's in the catbird seat. He is starting first. Who's starting next to him? It's Michael McDowell. We know in a drag race between those two in a road course going at the first turn that it's going to be Chase. I mean, McDowell's got no business being up here, but thanks to his win last week, he's starting here on the front row. Can Chase lead over half of this race? Yes, he definitely can. But you know, his averages, he leads about 29 laps per road race, averages about 16 fastest laps. So I mean, really, outside of that Watkins Glen race in 2019, dominating a road race really isn't in the cards for Chase. And you generally have these two different schools of thoughts with the drivers. You've got drivers that are committed to winning the race, and then you've got drivers that will give up winning the race in order to get stage points to help ensure that they have a place in the playoffs later on. Do we see those sort of shenanigans in the second race of the year? Probably, because I mean, teams know exactly what they have to do, and Chase isn't going to ever need to point his way into the playoffs. So stage points are something he's not going to be concerned about. Probably, 2 to 3 laps before the end of the segment breaks, he'll come in, give up the lead, lose a couple of laps, and then you'll have somebody that stays out and perhaps tries to race this race backwards, and maybe even a couple of guys with these different segment breaks. So I don't think that Chase could put together a dominating performance like that. But if you are going to play Chase or Denny for that matter, you are betting on them leading at least half or more of the race.
You mentioned about Almandinger. We're seeing him getting, very high ownership here. When I put in, Alex's projections into Fancy Cruncher and give me some lineups, he's one of the most popular options, coming up in 55% of the lineups in a 150 lineup projection here. What's kind of, as you look at him, you mentioned about kind of why, his motives here, it's about winning the race, but in terms of putting him in your lineups, what's kind of the, I guess the pros and cons of this?
Okay. The first thing is Dinger's history as a road racer. I mean, that's why he continued to get rides in this series. I remember a couple of years ago, I was watching an IMSA race, and Dinger was actually helping do play-by-play. And I remember one of the pit road guys just kind of off the cuff mentioned to Dinger, he said, "Hey, if you would have stayed here in this series, you would have been a god because you're that good. But you chased, I don't know if he said it so bluntly to him, but you chased money, you chased spotlight, you went to NASCAR, and you really never did anything." But Dinger continued to stay in the series because of how good he is as a road racer. Now, he retired, or was basically forced to retire a couple of seasons ago, and Collie Grayson has given him a seat in the 16 car over the last couple of years. And when you look at Dinger's results in road races, it's been really good. Last year in the Xfinity Daytona road course race, 4th. The Indianapolis road course race, 4th. The Roval race that was just rain drenched, 1st. The 2019 Roval race at Charlotte, 1st. Watkins Glen in 2019, 2nd. Watkins Glen in 2018, 2nd. Mid-America, 3rd. Road America, 2nd. Those were 2019. I mean, you give Dinger a good quality car, and he will be a factor to win. And you give him this place differential there at a fair price. I mean, Dinger should probably be north of 11K on DraftKings. I think FanDuel did a better job of pricing him up this week. Your one concern with Dinger is this car. This is basically Richard Childress car number 3. And if you look at how Austin Dillon has done over the last few years in road races, not that fantastic. You look at the combination of Tyler Reddick and Daniel Hemrick, or go back to the days of Ryan Newman when he was driving for this team. They're not good. So the concern here is, Dinger is probably a top 15 car, but in that equipment, can he truly overcome the limited upside of this car? Is his talent greater than this car, basically, and can he be a factor to win? It's hard considering the salary and where he's starting to really make a bad case for Dinger, like he's going to be a bad play, like he's not going to give you at least 5 or 6x value from where he's starting and what he's capable of doing. But expecting a win, I think that team is going to have to do something a little off the wall to get Dinger out front, and then just hope that his talent is so good that he can keep Hamlin, Truex, Chase behind him.
Appreciate everyone who's watching the show here on a Saturday afternoon and get you ready for tomorrow's NASCAR race course. Tomorrow, 1 hour before lock, we will have a live before lock show as I'll be hosting that show, as Chris will join me to get you ready for the action. Of course, be sure to sign up for an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. Gives you access to all the content and tools that we have over at awesemo.com, such as the driver projections, ownership projections, where we're talking about NASCAR or maybe any of the other sports that we offer as well. So you sign up for an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. And if you just want a NASCAR weekly pass, you can get that for $9.95. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. A lot of great tools to help you build your lineups for tomorrow's NASCAR race. Do want to mention a couple of questions that we got in here on the chat before we move on to tier number 2. Jacob asking, is it a smart idea to play Chase and Blaney together?
Yeah, I mean, you can make those salaries work together, but I mean, I'm just going to go back to what I said earlier when you asked about Chase. If you are going to play Chase, if you're going to play a single dominator, then your expectation is that Chase or Denny is going to lead half or more of these laps. Because the main thing working against Chase is that there are so many guys starting in the 20s or 30s who are cheaper, that have an easier path to scoring just as many points as Chase can with a very high upside day. I mean, these guys have to do their bar is set so low compared to what Chase has to do just to score the same amount of points.
Mention this question over from Slack from Aaron. He says, one thing I noticed last night in the truck race, do you think sometime in races with less dominator points, we almost forget about how important it still is where they finish? And what would be a good way to balance when building lineups? Yeah.
And, that was something that I highlighted in the article, is that nailing these top 5, top 10 finishes is essential for getting the most out of your lineups. So, if you have a decision like you've got one position left and you're trying to figure out, am I going to play Truex, Blaney, or Dinger as my high priced place differential play, then you've got to project in your mind, who out of these guys do I project to actually finish the highest of these guys? Do they have top 5, if not winning potential?
Of course, we'll move on to tier number 2. Of course, be sure to smash that like button right here on YouTube. Great way to show your support for the show. And if you are not subscribed to Awesemo, you got to hit that subscribe. Also, hit that notification bell so you know once a show is live here on the channel. Let's move on to tier number 2. This is the drivers in the 9K and 8K range. So we got Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Kevin Harvick, Alex Bowman, William Byron, Kurt Busch, Chase Briscoe, Kyle Larson, and Matty D. Just looking at in terms of in this, Alex Bowman was the guy on DraftKings that I'm just getting a ton of in my crunch.
Yeah, I mean, he starts 36th. He is 4 spots from absolute dead last. He's got so far to go. I don't know if you would want to go with a team stack this week, but over the last couple of years, the Hendrick guys have been so good at these road course races. I don't know what they're doing in R&D setup wise, but they have all consistently been really, really good. We're talking about Chase with his 4 straight wins at road courses. Bowman finishes of 8, 12, and 2 over his last 3 road course races. Those are all Roval type races, which is what we're going to see Sunday. Byron, his last 3 Roval finishes have gone 6, 8, 6. Hendrick is doing something really good, and that's a corollary that I want access to. And Bowman gives you just incredible safety because of his place differential, and he gives you amazing upside because of where he's starting and where he could go. I mean, if he finishes at his average for what he's done at road course races since 2018, we're talking about a finish around 9th or 10th. So if he's going to pick up 26, 27 spots in the process, he's going to easily eclipse 60 points tomorrow.
Tyler asking us about Busch and Larson. So I take you're asking about Kurt Busch, who's 8,600 on DK, 9,000 over on FanDuel. Kyle Larson, 8,300 on DraftKings and 9,300 on FanDuel.
Yeah, Kurt, he's a GPP play only, but he's a guy that, I mean, he knocks down these top 10 finishes in road races like they're nothing. I mean, he doesn't really wow you during the majority of the race, but when you look up and the checkered flag is going across, oh, hey, there's Kurt once again with an 8th or a 9th place finish. And, you know, if these guys like below him, Chase Briscoe, William Byron, Alex Bowman, of course, Bowman and Byron are going to be much higher owned. And if something happens during the race, a cut down tire, a bad pit stop, or, you know, a wreck like we've seen here, somebody gets turned going into a corner, then Busch can easily outscore these guys at much less at far fewer ownership. Now, Larson is a tougher pill to swallow. Yes, we're getting the Hendrick corollary, and over his career, Larson's been fairly okay. Now, we haven't seen him in a road course race since the Roval race in 2019, but in those 6 races that we did see him from in 18 and 19, he had an average finish of 12.7, and he actually averaged 10 laps led per race and 7.7 fastest laps. So he was finding dominator points in the process. It's just with him starting 8th, he puts you in a tough spot, knowing that you need him to either hold his position or move forward, plus gain some dominator points in the process. And what we're going to get out of Larson in his first road race in year and a half, I don't know. It's a very risky play.
Looking at some other ones here, you got Matty D starting 32nd, Briscoe 18th, Byron 22nd, Harvick 5th, Logano 11th, Kozlowski 15th, and Denny Hamlin 4th. I guess just because I'm seeing he was coming in crunches for me. Matty D 32nd. Obviously, we've been talking so much about point differential. He's definitely someone that kind of sticks out to me.
Yeah, I mean, Matt should be a cornerstone of your cash lineups tomorrow. He's at a really superb price. He didn't get priced up nearly as much as he probably should have with that place differential. You look at his career of late, racing in this 21 car for Wood Brothers and then 95 for Levine a couple of seasons ago. He's been a guy that hovers around 20th place for the majority of the race, and then towards the end kind of finds his way around 14th, 15th. If he's going to have that kind of day, that's going to be a really solid day for cash, and he'll probably be a top 10 scorer overall on DraftKings, and may end up finding his way into optimal lineups if he moves up enough.
Is there anybody else in this tier that you look at and say, man, I have a feeling that driver is going to be in a lot of my lineups?
I've already mentioned Bowman and Byron, and I will have some exposure to Kurt. One guy that I'm going to try to find a way to get him in probably 15-20% of my lineups is Joey Logano. Logano has really improved as a Roval racer since they've incorporated these into the road racing calendar. His last 3 finishes at Roval races have gone 2nd, 9th, and 10th. He started 5th last year in the Go Bowling 253, finished 9th, but it's encouraging to see that he's running pretty well in the Charlotte Roval. Finished 2nd to chase that day. He's a guy at 9,400. He's probably not going to catch a lot of ownership, especially with Bowman just right there near him at 9K with 25 more spots of place differential. Logano could be one of those guys that sneaks his way into a top 5 finish.
Mention a question about Eric Amarola here in a little bit, but do want to let you know we are approaching 30,000 followers on our Twitter account, which is at Awesemo_com. And if you are not following us, help us reach 30,000 followers. And to celebrate this, we will be giving away 30 free weekly passes to our followers. So head over right now, Follow us at Awesemo_com. Also, be sure to follow the NASCAR account, which is at Awesemo NASCAR, to get you so you always know when new articles are up on the site and all the content we have in relation to NASCAR here at Awesemo.com. Let's move on to tier number 3. These will be the drivers in the 7K and 6K range. You got Almirola, Jones, Bell, Reddick, Newman, Busher, Custer, McDowell, Dillon, Chastain, Wallace, and Stenhouse Jr. I'll mention a question that we already got on Almirola from Jacob. Says he's 7.8 on FanDuel. We will get to him, but I need an opinion on Almirola. I think he will go somewhere low owned.
And he should be, because, I mean, when you look at who's above him and below him, both on DraftKings and FanDuel, Matty D starts further back in 32nd. Then you've got Eric Jones starting further back in 36th. I mean, so he's sandwiched in between guys that have more place differential, more upside. And you look at Almirola's resume, he really hasn't been that fantastic as a road racer. He kind of mirrors Matty D's numbers in a way. And if you're going to say, I can have the same driver starting 32nd, or I can have the same driver starting 26th, I'm going to take the same driver starting 32nd. Just give me the baseline of place differential. And then when it comes down to Almirola versus Jones, Jones has been a much better road racer than Almirola has, and Jones is giving you 10 more spots of place differential. So that decision is gonna be easy. I've got Almirola listed as a GPP play. Yes, he's got place differential, but he's definitely not a guy that I can envision with a top 5 or a top 10 finish. If it happens, it's going to be because this race got wonky and he avoided wrecks, or his team did some really weird pit strategy at the end of the race and got him out front. But just by sheer merits of his road racing talent, it's not a play that I want to make a part of my core.
I want to mention 2 drivers here who are starting near the top. That'll be 2nd and 3rd, McDowell and Dillon. How do those guys, what's the path to them being optimal in GPPs?
They can't lose any positions. They absolutely cannot go backwards. And I mean, it seems like that's their ultimate fate in this race. Austin Dillon has been brutal as a road course racer. His average finish going back to 2018 is 25.6. So yes, he did get some time on this track during the Rolex 24. He raced in Rick Ware's Le Mans car, so he got some laps behind here. So, you know, basically him and Chase and Cody Ware are the only guys that have recently seen this track. And that's something else that you can add to Dinger, is that he's going to run today's Xfinity race, so he will have some more time behind the seat than a lot of these guys. But Dillon can't go backwards, and it feels like that's his ultimate destiny. McDowell starting 2nd, he definitely can't go backwards. He's got to get some laps lead points. You know, you could make a really weird off the wall case for these guys, like if they would have been priced in the 5K range, because what you need from them, it's not that tough. But getting priced at around the 7K mark for both these guys, I think it's made it nearly impossible to with a straight face to play these guys. Even if you're doing 150 max and you're just kind of you want exposure to all of these guys that you're going to have like maybe 5 to 7% of, just in case all hell breaks loose. I still can't make a case for rostering either of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's some drivers in this range that we are seeing getting some ownership, and there's some drivers that we're not seeing getting much ownership. And those drivers, you know, I mean, literally almost nothing is Michael McDowell and Bubba Wallace.
I think people are genuinely scared when they look at Bubba because of that starting position. Yeah, he's 10th, so he really doesn't have that far to go up. But when you look at his history in road course races, average finish of 26.8 over the last 3 years. And admittedly, when he first started doing road racing in this car, he publicly said he hated it. Like, he was not good at it. He was really worried about the very first Charlotte Roval race. And I mean, that first practice session, he went headlong into a wall. And if he just would have walked out of the car, dusted his hands off and said, y'all get another driver, because I'm going to kill myself this weekend, I don't think many people would have had fault with him. He's in a much better car. I don't know if this weekend will be a true testament of, is this his car matching his talent? Is one making up for the other? Blah, 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 blah. I mean, he's cheaper than either McDowell or Dillon, but once again, you really need Bubba to not go backwards. And if he does, at the most, he can only lose a couple of positions. And that's another one of the tough things. Like, if you're going to try to make a case for Bubba, who are you playing him instead of? Are you going to play him instead of Ross Chastain, Austin Dillon, Michael McDowell, who all have the same place differential issues? If you're looking down the board, are you playing him instead of Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who we all kind of worry about wrecking himself or someone else during the process of the race? Are you going to play him instead of Anthony and Alfredo, who I don't even know what to think about this kid in his first road race? I mean, he just might take it easy and just kind of ride around. Yeah, he's got place differential, but expectations for him, I mean, they're everywhere. You could pick one out of left field with how you think he does today. So if you're making a case for Stenhouse, not for Stenhouse, but for Bubba, I don't know who you're trying to make him a pivot off of.
Of course, this is the Awesemo NASCAR DFS strategy show right here on Awesemo.com. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button here on YouTube. That really does help us out. And be subscribed here to Awesemo's content every day, and hit that notification bell so you know when a new show is live here on the channel. I'll mention a question here. It says, Ryan Newman, 6,000 on FanDuel looks sneaky. Do you agree?
I love Ryan Newman, but no, let's not do this. Let's not play Ryan Newman in a road course race. We're not going to act like this is a good play, because you know who's the exact same price as Ryan Newman but has much more upside on FanDuel. It's Chris Buescher. He's the exact same price. He starts just a little bit further forward, but Buescher is a guy that I can actually project to pick up 15, even 20 spots come the end of this race. Ryan Newman, I mean, 25th, 24th, 23rd on a good day. If you want to play Newman in cash, go do it. Have fun, but I don't think you need to. And even in tournaments, that's a play that I don't want any part of. It's just Newman has no upside to me. Tomorrow, he's too expensive on DraftKings at 7,300. I don't see him moving that far forward. And at his price on FanDuel, there's guys that I would much rather play, guys that I can actually project to pick up much more place differential.
Moving on to tier number 4, these will be the drivers that are under 6,000 on DraftKings. So we've got Alfredo, Suarez, Dillon, Hayley, Priest, Davison, Hill, LaJoy, Bilecki, Eckert, Ware, Hoff, and Smithley. Where do you want to start in terms of this tier?
Okay, Daniel Suarez is probably the lowest that you should go in terms of looking for a cash game play. Suarez has been a pretty good to average road racer during his career. I mean, that's how he cut his teeth racing in the Monterey region of Mexico before he came up to the Truck Series and Xfinity Series. He starts 35th. He's 5,700 on DraftKings. He's 4,500 on FanDuel. The bar is so low from what you need from Suarez. And, his finishes of 25th and 27th last year when he was racing in that 96 car for the Gaunt brothers, don't hold that stuff against him. He's probably in a better car. And don't forget who his team owner is. His team owner is Justin Marks, who was a certified road ringer for Chip Ganassi for nearly a decade. So Justin Marks has probably been in Suarez's ear, helping to navigate what issues there may be for Suarez getting into this car. I like Suarez in cash. You go down the board. I think the really interesting tournament play is going to be Justin Hayley starting 20th. We have seen some high points from Hayley. He's got to win somewhere in his history as an Xfinity driver driving. Let's see here. No, it's not. He finished second in the Indianapolis road race. The car's not great. It's the 77 of Spire Motorsports. This car, it might have some sort of small technical alliance with Chip Ganassi, but the price is low. If he can kind of hold his position, and once again, this is another one-off where he's not concerned about points. He's not concerned about stage points. It's all about win or nothing else. So perhaps this team could do some crazy things at the end to try to get him out front and hope that he stays out front. It's a guy that I might have 5 to 10% ownership in, but I want some ownership in him just because I like the talent and I like the upside of a guy that has nothing more than a win in his windshield, so to speak.
In terms of some other drivers down here, I mean, any interest in taking a Davison starting 39th, a Hill starting 40th, maybe more in a cash spot?
People might want to flock to Ty Dillon since he starts 38th. It's because they know the name. But once again, this is that Gaunt brother car that Suarez was in last year. So maybe with the combination of things, Ty Dillon finishes 30th, 31st, 29th. So I mean, like if you wanted to place Ty Dillon in lieu of Suarez, I can understand that case. We tried to make the case for James Davison last year as the more experienced road racer of all of these punt guys. He starts 39th. He finished 29th and 30th in his 2 road races last year. If he produces the same, at 5,200, he might be a guy that allows you to get in the more expensive place differential drivers. And when you go down the board here, I mean, I can't make the case for Corey LaJoie starting 7th. I can't make the case for Ryan Preece starting 6th. Billicky is a road racer. He has his own driving school where he'll teach you how to race on a road race, but starting 23rd, that really puts him behind the 8 ball. You've got Scott Heckert, who is a road ringer, but his equipment there for BJ McLeod's car, it's questionable at best. And then you might have made the case for Cody Ware as one of the more experienced road racers in this punt range, especially at 4,700. But starting 21st, it puts him in a really tough position because because the quality of the car, he's destined to go backwards.
Of course, if you ever miss any of our shows here on YouTube Live, you can catch them on demand as a part of the Awesemo Podcast Network. All you got to do is go to awesemo.com/podcast, so you can find the links for the podcast that you're looking for, so you can subscribe to that feed. If you just want the NASCAR feed where you want to listen to the strategy show, you're unable to watch this live here on Saturday, do that right now and leave a 5-star rating and review. And if you leave one of those on one of our podcasts, you will be entered in for a chance to win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Good luck. Another great way to show your support for what we do here at Awesemo.com is by leaving a rating and review over on your favorite podcasting platform. Let's get into some questions here that have not gotten to prior in the show. It goes, seriously though, are there any sort of correlation? Do teams work together, or is it like F1 where they drive against each other?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely make the case in super speedway races where it's a whole lot easier to find your teammates, stay with them and work together. But especially these road races, it's going to be every man for himself. You won't see teams like trying to find their way and then block other teams, because it's just so incredibly tough to try to fall back into the pack and then pick somebody up and then move back up through. You definitely will not be seeing that. So if you have some unintentional correlation because of manufacturers or teams, because you like what they've done setup wise in the past, and then I mean that's fine. I'm probably going to have a bunch of teams with at least 2 Hendrick drivers. But as far as intentionally trying to find Penske drivers to pair together, Hendrick drivers, Joe Gibbs drivers to pair together, that's just going to happen by chance.
Jay Lopez says, is Chase a fade even though he might win the race, but he will only get like 48 points or so?
I don't think he's a fade. Like, you should have some exposure to Chase. You should have some exposure to Denny as possible dominators. Like, if this was just a typical race where all of the guys that we're finding in the 20s and 30s were starting up towards the front, they didn't have exposure to their place differential points, then I would be going a lot heavier on Chase. But I'm probably going to find myself in that 25 to 30% range in case he does what he's capable of and leads the majority of laps. I played with the math and gave him his dominator points based on his averages over the last 3 years at road races. So that only gives him a 14 to 15 point boost to his score. And let's just say that he finishes first. You give him those 14, 15, maybe 16 points plus his points for his finishing position. Then we're in the 60 point range. And when you say, well, what does Ryan Blaney have to do to get to that? Blaney's just got to bring home a top 5 finish. And that's saying he gets no dominator points in the process. That's why I was saying it's so much easier for these Blaneys, these Dingers, these Bowmans, these Byrons, these Matty D's to reach this threshold that Chase Elliott's going to have to get to with a really, really good performance.
JJT was wanting to know about Dinger's equipment and where it's coming from.
He is in the 16 car, which is fielded by Colleague Racing. You guys know, if you play Xfinity DFS or watch it, that Colleague is a really good up-and-coming young team. They've been around for a couple of years. They run 3 cars in the Xfinity series. They had 2 cars, Ross Chastain and Justin Hayley, in the championship last year. They have plans of coming into the Cup Series eventually, but they're just running a few off races this season. They ran Kaz Gralla in this car last week in the Daytona 500. This week they're putting Dinger in here, and probably you're going to see Almandinger in every road race this season. I talked about it previously. This car is getting a lot of parts and R&D from Richard Childress. That's who they're leaning on for the majority of their equipment. So I mean, you're talking about a mid-tier team, but just how much of Childress is going into this car is unknown. So, you know, in reality, I think you could think about this like we did a couple of years ago. What would you have done with AJ Allmendinger at 10,200, starting 34th in the 47 car for JTG Doherty?
Mentioned a question over in our Slack channel. This is in relation to the Xfinity race. Johnny Rose saying, Moffatt on the pole or Cody Ware starting 38th, DraftKings. Is there anyone you love that is a must play?
Oh, well, I did write an Xfinity article. If you'll go to the NASCAR page at our website, you will find it there. I list a favorite dominator play. I talk about underpriced Ty Gibbs, and then go over a bunch of place differential plays, because I mean, there's a bunch of guys in the 30s and 20s that you can play, even more so than today's race. You've only got 50 or so laps today in the Xfinity race, so that discussion that we just had about playing a dominator, it it becomes really tough to make the case in a 50 lap race, because you're losing that much more dominator points. So if your question is, should I play Brett Moffatt, who's been a pretty good road racer in the truck series, this Hour Motorsports car, it's a mid-tier car in this series. So, Brett's got good equipment to work with. You look at his last two races in the Xfinity series at road races, it was finishes of 36th and 38th. So, I mean, that's not exactly fantastic. But Cody, his last finish in the Xfinity series in a road race, he raced in the Roval at Charlotte. He finished 7th. He starts 38th. He's got all the place differential in the world. I mean, it's a slam dunk. Cody Ware over Brett Moffatt, just 1v1. Now, as per a must play for me, and I labeled it this way in the article, there is nothing sexy about Michael Annett. Michael Annett is a guy that is running in the Xfinity series simply because he has enough sponsorship dollars in his back pocket to place him in a ride at JR Motorsports. That is the whole story and nothing else. However, it's a really good car. It may be one of the better cars in the series. He's underpriced at $8,700. He starts 33rd. When you look at his history in this car at road races, he's been consistent. He is about a 10th place driver. His finishes go 15, 9, 9, 15, 20, 9, 17, 16, 13, 18, 19, 10, 12, 12, 2. So, I mean, it's right there. He is going to work his way up. He's going to be a 10th to a 15th place driver at that salary. I don't know how you don't play Michael Annett today, GPP or cash.
Of course, I did drop the link to Phil's article on the Xfinity race today there. Of course, you can go over to Awesemo.com to check out all the content that Phil has up on the site. You got to check that out. Looking at just some betting odds in terms of this race tomorrow. Obviously, it's going to depend on where you're looking at it, but here's some of the lines that I'm seeing. AJ Almandinger plus 800, Chase Elliott plus 170. Blaney plus 600. But if you really want to kind of go down there and some names that maybe we mentioned a little bit earlier, Matty D plus 4,000.
Yeah, I mean, and this is always the key. Shop around. Don't just, if you have money at DraftKings Sportsbook, don't just say this is the only place that I'm going to play. I mean, if you live in a state where it's legal to bet online, do some shopping, get some better odds, because what you mentioned, Dinger plus 800, I'm still looking here at DraftKings Sportsbook, and it's 1,600. It's really hard for me to just say outright that Chase isn't going to win, plus 200. His top 10 odds are minus 670 at DraftKings Sportsbook. I mean, it's bananas what you've got to lay down just to make a little bit of cash at DK for Chase to have a top 10. If it's me and I'm a little quirky, I may not be here at DraftKings Sportsbook. I may not be looking at outright winners, but maybe I'm going to scroll these top 10 odds and I'm going to look at, we talked about him before. Let me find him. Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher for a top 10 finish at the Sportsbook is plus 300. That's something I can wrap my arms around. Matty D for a top 10 finish is plus 225. So, those are some numbers I can feel a little better about. Dinger is minus 155 for a top 10 finish. Just shop around. There's some good numbers out there.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, we always talk about that shop around. Of course, you can always go over to Awesemo.com there at the top of the screen when you're looking to shop the odds. No matter what the sport is, Odds Shopper, to check it out here. Of course, I will be back tomorrow for NASCAR Live Before Lock. That'll be at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, you can follow Phil on Twitter at RaceSheetsDFS. Of course, he's always over in our premium Slack channel. That is one of the great perks of being an Awesemo Plus member. You get access to our premium Slack channel, so you can hop in there and ask Phil any questions any time of the day. Phil will get back to you, whatever your question may be. So that is going to do it for this edition of the NASCAR DFS Strategy Show. And join us tomorrow for Live Before Lock at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Good luck, everyone.